Hello and welcome back. It's Puppet Time Online. I'm your host, Eric Wright, brought to you by the Puppet Kitchen. Puppet Time Online is your chance to sit down with some of puppetry's finest and me to learn about what they know about. Is that a catchy slogan yet, Katrina?
It's really catchy, and
I think it's going to take the internet by storm. As usual, I have Katie over here producing the show. She's here to just keep things running smoothly, but she's also going to catch your questions and comments. Feel free to type them into the questions section. We're broadcasting live on Facebook, on YouTube, and Twitch right now, so I think the comments are all over. But please type in and ask questions of me or our guest today. I'm super excited for our guest. I've been a big fan of his for many, many years. And ever since he came to visit the old Puppet Kitchen, he was shooting a Sesame Street segment at the Connolly Theater. And we got to meet him and see some of his act and see some of the amazing things that he does. And since then, I just follow him like mad on Instagram. So I'm very excited to bring on a wonderful performer, maker, punk rock comedian. It's Mario, the Maker Magician. Mario, how's it going?
Oh man, this is so cool. How's it going, Eric? Thanks for having me on.
I am so excited to have you on. This is
but
great.
You're laughing at me because I brought my vampire monkey.
He's all decked out for Halloween.
That's right. I got the backdrop out. It is virtual Halloween. You know how it is. Everything's virtual. So.
Oh, I sure do. This is it. Yeah. This is where we're at. It's great. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy to have you here. So let's jump right in. I always like to start with asking people about how they got into puppetry. Now you are Mario the Maker Magician, not Mario the Puppeteer, but you use puppetry in your show. And why don't you tell me a little bit about how you first got into using puppetry in your work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love making things first and foremost. You know, I've always loved I got into carving wood in, my late teens and marionette building. And my dream was always to be, some type of crazy busker, and so I tried to build this like fake, like this portable like marionette stage. And so anyway, you know how it is. You go through these journeys of trying to find your voice and how to tell a story, and from there, I got into magic by accident. I walked into an antique shop and it was a magic shop. And I swear it was like a really weird mystic thing where I spent weeks and then months there, joined the magic club. And then next thing you know, I'm, becoming a magician. And, but my big passion in life really is to tell a story where something happens on my table and I can walk away from it and it's still moving. It's still doing something like an automaton kind of thing, And magic introduced me to that. And so that idea like was always in the back of my brain. And so what I do now is like, I make robots, that are kind of like puppets.
Yeah, they're absolutely puppets. I mean, there's no kind of about it. Like,
yeah, they are.
Marcel, the little monkey you're holding up, like he's the one that I got to see when you came over to visit the Connolly, and it's so great. Can you tell us a little bit about how Marcel works, or what's going on with him?
Yeah, I mean, even before I dive in, Eric, I'm such a huge fan of everything you do, dude. And like that was years ago, and
that was so many years ago.
That was so many years ago. And Sesame Street was like, I never been to college. Like this was like a big degree for me to just even work with them for that one episode, and it was crazy that I met you on that shoot day, because like here I am, like just these beautiful puppets are like displayed like it's the MoMA museum, they're just like perfectly in stance. And then there's this puppet kitchen, and I'm like, what? And there's all these tinkerers just all creating this magic behind the scenes, And it was so cool because Marcel is the finale of my magic show, and he does 3 minutes of theater. The whole thing that Marcel does is he has a story. The goal is for him to pick up a clown nose and put it inside of a can that's next to him. And Marcel, are you alive? See, he's alive. He's alive. There he is. Marcel, look at me. Marcel, he's voice activated. Marcel, can you say hi to all the wonderful people that are watching right now? And there he goes. He's, he's going all out. But basically, I'll turn him off now just to explain. But what he does is I talk to Marcel. He answers yes or no questions. And then he knocks the ball off the table. He knocks the can off the table. The idea is to take a journey with the kids that are watching. And then at the end, he picks up the ball, and puts it in the can. But what was so special about that day was after the shoot, I got to perform Marcel for you and all the producers of Sesame Street. And the big magic trick, the big magic trick that I bring with this that I'm really proud of is that it's not remote control. There's this thing with remote control, especially on Sesame Street back then, where you have a receiver and a transmitter. I memorize robotic movement to create a story. So I memorize the servo movements to get laughter and to create a story. So Marcel, I wrote a loop of code that I kept tinkering with every time I did a magic show to see where the kids are laughing and where they're not laughing enough. And I'm changing the wait time between the motor movements to get my story across. So it was really magical when I did that. Out of all days, dude, Eric, I meet you at this like sacred day. I'll be like 88 years old. I'll be like, that was the day I met Eric. Like that was a big day for me, and it was cool that you were in the audience that day, like after the shoot was over. And it's good to be appreciated for your artwork, and all these people that were there that day, their heart is in it. Like my heart is in it, just like your heart is in it.
Well, we really your aesthetic is really the way Marcel's put together, like that looks like how the puppet kitchen, like that old shop at the Connolly.
Yes.
That's what it looked like. It was like stuff put together. Like you can, a lot of the stuff that Puppet Kitchen does, we really pride ourselves on being able to see that it is something that was made and that is something that you could then make at home, where you can sort of get an idea of what it is that you can see. So I feel like our looks really mesh in that way. And
100%. And I feel like what's so cool about what you do too is that you're thinking a step ahead. It's not just about making it look cool, right? You're thinking in your mind like you want to inspire the next generation of kids. You want them to see this stuff. You want it to be accessible. And that's why I look the way I look. It's the same spirit of like that street performer from when I was 17 hitchhiking cross country. It's like I don't want to be on a stage. Just because I'm physically elevated on a stage doesn't mean that I'm bigger or better in any way. It's actually the opposite. I want them to feel that they're taller when they're watching, And I see that in your puppetry, and I try to emulate that in my own show too.
Yeah. How did you start figuring out how to build something like Marcel? Like how did you even like think about? Was that the first time that you had used any kind of servos or programming or anything like that? Or had you had experience with that before?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm a big believer in when you feel something deep in your gut, like you got to follow it no matter what. And I had this idea, the old street performer with the crank organ and the monkey, that image of that whole thing is so mystique to me, And so the idea was I can never get a real monkey. Like there's no way for my magic show. There's so many reasons why it's wrong and I won't. But the idea was like, wow, how do I make this thing that I feel so strongly about, that I feel is so cool, that doesn't exist yet? And so I started building Marcel's head out of cardboard, clothes hanger wire. I bought an Arduino kit back in like 2009, And I just took the journey without knowing the steps ahead. I just took the journey. So that's why Marcel looks so crazy and creepy, like from his head, it's, up, is because he's all homemade, wine cork and paper mache kind of stuff. And then I learned how to make a servo move with the Arduino. So I was able to do this moment and then this movement. And then the idea of grabbing things was insane because now these servos have to be so specific for like the shoulder, for this movement. This is like heavy duty stuff, you know?
This is big time stuff.
So I got into Arduino and I got really lucky. There was a holiday gift that I got from Katie's parents. It was a 3D printer back in like 2012, you know, like when MakerBot was just starting out back in those early years. And that changed my life. It was one of those tools that really just made me think of whatever I could think of, I can make, you know, and he kind of took off from there. And then now I have, you know, I have this movement, which does so much. And then now I can pick things up and he can clap, you know, so these kind of things, you know, kind of elevated the story where now he's not just answering yes and no. Now he can pick things up, knock things over, say hello. How do we connect without words? You know, how do we connect without words?
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Katie, you have a question?
I just wanted to point out people named Katie usually give the best gifts.
This is just a fact. It's just a fact.
Hey, listen, I knew that backstage. I knew that backstage. You were giving tips. I didn't even have to bat an eye. I know. There's something about the name. Guys are living out the name without a doubt, Katie. All right.
Yeah. Well, that's so. I mean, it's so cool. When you say you tweak, you because what you're talking about with programming these robotic movements with Marcel, it's and then like fine tuning them. Yeah, it's this great hybrid between, you know, the live puppetry performance that I'm used to and like animation, where you're really like tuning, like, but it really sort of bridges that gap between, you know, it sort of takes away the sense of time with the performance. So when you tune it, when you tune that performance, are you just thinking about what you've, like, did you tune it after every performance with Marcel, or do you videotape your performances and then play it back and then see what the tune, like those adjustments would be like, or like, what's that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. So like, I've spent 12 years of my life doing private events in New York City, you know. A big dream of mine was to just pay my rent doing what I love, you know, and that was magic in my 20s. And every magician didn't want to do kids' birthdays. So I just took those gigs out of just the bigger picture. Like, I want to pay my bills. And from there came the love and realizing that I'm a stronger performer with kids than I am with adults, you know? And so now all of a sudden, now I'm learning my demographic in my brain, what my talents are, what my weaknesses are. I get nervous when I perform to an all adult audience. When there's kids and families, I romp around like Charlie Chaplin, you know, like get crazy. And I was able to utilize that with the robotics. So when Marcel started, the big thing for me always with the magic trick is the ending. If I have a great ending, I can build a story around it. So the ending was very simple. It was like, if I can get Marcel to put a ball in a can, that would be awesome. You know? So I work the code out. I get him to put the ball in the can. Now what I do? How do I stall as much as possible to get to that ending, you know? And that's where the bits came in. So Marcel in the beginning beats his chest. That's what monkeys do. I'm limited by the movements of Marcel. How do I capitalize with these movements to get the best reaction? So Marcel beats his chest. What do we do next? He looks at me, wave to all the kids. The kids can all wave back. That's a great moment. They wave at me. And now he answers a yes or no question. So he can answer, Marcel, are you going to be an amazing listener today? He looks at me. He says yes. When I look to the audience, he waves no, you know? Right. So that's a classic ventriloquist bit. That's a classic bit where he's looking at me. We're having an agreement. But then when I look away, that agreement's broken. You know, the kids laugh, you know? Yeah. And so I do that twice. And then the next thing to stall is let's knock things over. That's what monkeys do. So he knocks the ball, knocks the can. And then my favorite part, Eric, is, I don't know if you remember, but I get mad at him. I'm like, Marcel, this was terrible. He looks at me and he puts like his head down, you know, and he's sad, you know. Yeah. And then he goes, aw. And it's just this beautiful moment where now we have an excuse to like get this victory where it's not about a great robot, not about a great magic trick. It's like we're in it, we're invested emotionally, you know. Right. And then he picks the ball up and puts it in the can, and then we get that victory. But I mean, you know, there were times, the in-between moments when he looks at me and says yes, And then when he says no to the audience, that has to get tweaked because there's a timing there to get the laugh, you know? So that's where the delay changes, where I'll change it from 4 seconds to 6.5, and I'll tweak it. And then, oh, wow, I'm getting that reaction. So every step has that. And then once you get it, then it's up to me, the performer, to bounce with the audience that's in the moment, whether that age range is like mostly teens or if they're young or if it's all mixed. Then I can change what I do and I work around what he's, you know, can't change. You know what I mean?
Right. It seems so funny, you know, to think about a performance as being able at all to interface with something that is set. That's a set, you know, timing, because, you know, when you get up on stage and you really, you know, you're there with an audience, like anything could happen. It could take however long, but, you know, you do the same, but there is also a little bit of, that you're guiding the audience into, you know, what the moments can be. And with that, you have a certain amount of control over what the act is going to be like.
Definitely. And you see, for me, it's a freedom thing because I know the loop of code. It's something that doesn't give me fear because I know what the story is. And that's like, you know, like an actor following the script, like memorizing that script is so key, you know? So with this kind of stuff, once I went through that trailblazing, all those living rooms with kids screaming, throwing shoes at me at Marcel, you know, getting that rhythm where it's finally working somewhat, you know, then now I can start becoming that confident performer where, you know, we have this story to tell and I can act out all the flaws, you know? And then if he does mess up and there is a moment, it's okay. I can bounce back because I know what's happening next with the movements, you know?
Right.
But it is, the difficult part is finding the story and trailblazing through live audiences to get where it works, you know?
Yeah. Do you, that's so cool. What you said, you started with the idea that like he was gonna like put a thing in the can and like that's the payoff.
Yeah.
Is that generally how you start? I'm so curious how you design magical experiences, like how you design that moment for an audience and where that comes from and how you kind of craft that together.
Yeah, that's a great question too. For me, like I'm always searching. I like my strength is my gut, you know, like I'm not a very like science oriented, graph everything out kind of person. So if the Marcel thing, there was a bigger than life idea in my head of that street performer, that busker, that like you're walking down the street and you're like, wait a second, you hear the music. And then as you get closer, you become more amazed, you know? So what I love about Marcel, Eric, is that he's all self-contained. This is like my philosophy, you know? It's all the batteries are built into the body. I can be in Central Park and do the same thing, you know? So that kind of thing is very liberating to me. Same with like, if you look up my YouTube, you'll see Mr. Lamp. He's another part that I'm really proud of. He's like a little Pixar lamp that does the same thing. He has a goal. He has a switch. You know, and he interacts with me too with the red ball. So there's a theme, you know. And what's cool about Mr. Lamp, you know, he follows the color red. So wherever the red goes, he follows, you know. So I can be like, up here, Mr. Lamp, you know, and he looks here and bring it down. So this is all the same principle. This is all designed on Tinkercad, servo motors, me memorizing the movements of these servo motors to create a story. And then utilizing core principles of vaudeville, core principles of magic that I know are going to work. So it's like the yes and no thing with Marcel. I know that bit works. I've seen it hundreds of times. Mr. Lamp plays dead. And then I give him CPR. That's an old Rocky Raccoon bit. There's this magician, David Williamson. He does it with a puppet. You know, I know that works. So as much as this looks completely chaotic, it's resting on a foundation of core principles, you know? Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you watch a lot of magic growing up? And did you see a lot of, you know, vaudeville style performers?
You know, most magicians start when they're like 8, 9 years old, you know? I got into it when I was 21. Like I never, my parents were immigrants. They came to this country, you know, right after they got married. My first language was Italian and American mixed, you know, like, you know, so it was and then their traditions were what were important at that time. So like the idea of reading Peter Pan you know, these kind of classic traditional stories. I didn't read them till I was 17, 18, you know? So like, and so what happened was I'm 21, 22, I get into magic, but I got into it really like strong, you know? So, I got obsessed with, you know, Bill Irwin, George Carl on Johnny Carson, the great Valentine. I mean, these guys, they're creating magic without even like with everyday props. You know, Charlie Fry, you know, he could spend 4 minutes with a spoon in his hand and he'll have you dying laughing and doing the impossible with it. You know, when I came across those kind of people when I was 22 on video, that changed my life. Like it was just one of those things that like you can't. And then I got really lucky where I got to see a performance by a magician up close. And it was so freaking good, Eric. It was so good. It was like the kind of magic where when you're done seeing it, I felt like I was going to puke outside because it was so magical, so mystical, so amazing. Yeah. And I had no idea because I just got into magic. 2 years later, this gentleman wins FISM, World Championships of Magic. And I saw him on the cover of a magazine and I was like, holy cow. I was like among like this like prophetic mystic, like, you know, and I had no idea, but I did have an idea because that kind of performance motivated me to stick to my guns. When you see an art form, man, if you can see it best that it is, you can't turn it around. That's why live theater is so key, you know?
Yeah. Well, and what do you make of the like the community that's come up around just making in general, and like this whole idea of like putting it together, doing it yourself, figuring it out, like that was pretty new when you were starting to come up, like starting to develop your act, and like how has that changed over the years, and how has that influenced, you know, what you do?
Yeah, you know, the maker movement, I have so much to be thankful for them. And back in like 2006, I saw Make Magazine at a Barnes and Noble. There was a cover with someone playing a cigar box guitar. And it was the first time when I dove into those projects, that was the first time where I realized there's a whole group of humans that think like I do, that love what I love, you know, like making stuff and the aesthetics of how they look. Like there's this whole subculture, and I got introduced to it through Make Magazine. And that's where I saw the Arduino, this little blue board. It was $30. It came out in Bologna, Italy, Massimo Banzi. Like, I'm like, and you can make motors move with your computer? That's insane. Yeah. Because engineering is so tough. Capacitors, resistors, transistors. You know, all of a sudden now it's all made into a little board that costs $30. That was a game changer for me. So once I got, and that's what I do now, Eric, is like I lecture to magicians, and I do virtual stuff for Make, and I just try to encourage 3D design, 3D printing, and how to animate the things that you 3D print. You know, I think those are real important things, which you've adapted to. Obviously, back in the day, you know, I mean, you really did.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Michael was my old business partner, was the guy that really got into incorporating 3D printing into our practice at Puppet Kitchen, and I myself have never really got into it, but I'm really keen to. Like, where would I, like, what's the best place for me to start in like thinking about translating? Because I have tons of tools and skills in making things by my hands and like cutting stuff out and tracing things and like making things in real life. What's the best way to translate that into making things in the computer? So tinkercad.com, tinkercad.com. It's you could start today. Make a profile on tinkercad.com. It's a 3D design software that's completely free if you have an internet connection and a computer. And there are kids all over the world using Tinkercad. I'm talking about first, second, third graders. This is a great basic program. When you sign up, there's tutorials built in. You build a little cube die or a box, so you understand the principles. It's like virtual Play-Doh. You know, you kind of just morph and group objects together, and then from there you download the file you create, and now you can get a 3D printer for $200, dude. It's crazy. You know, I mean, you could go online and get a printer for pretty cheap now. And between those two things, you get your Tinkercad file. Oh, and then one more link, thingiverse.com. Thingiverse. Thing, A-B-E-R-S-E,
theatrical.com is the universe of things. So there's people, open source community. You could type in R2D2 and there's like R2D2 keychains and R2D2 coffee mugs. You know, you take a file that's free, you download it, put it on Tinkercad, and now you can tweak that R2D2 into a puppet or tweak it into a cup that fits quarters so I can make a magic trick with it. So these are the tools that we're on a computer right now, you know, like how many people don't use Tinkercad and 3D printing? I mean, I'm just saying, like, there's so much if you know where to look. And these are one of the places where someone showed me to look, and it's helped me, you know, make a career out of what I'm doing, you know, sharing magic and making what I'm imagining, you know?
Yeah. I'm fascinated. I mean, there's something about your aesthetic, because I identify with it so much. That's like this handmade, you can see how it works. It's like Marcel is clearly servos and motors, and like that to me really translates to puppetry, where like we are showing you how it's working. You can see the strings, you can see the you can see the puppeteers sometimes, you can see how it works. And I'm fascinated with that as a magician's aesthetic, because it seems like magic often, like the culture of magic often tries to hide a lot of the work a lot of the times, right?
Oh yeah.
And so you found this really great balance of trying to like showing that it's possible to do it. Yeah. And also that wonder of like, how is it done and how do you do it? And like that there's mystery in there. Oh yeah. How do you think about that with your act, and how do you sort of walk that line?
Yeah. So this is what's so cool is like, you know, like with the lamp, you know, I do the same thing. It's like 3 minutes of theater. He follows the red ball. I talk about sensors to my audience. You know, there are sensors like on your car. Your side mirrors will start flashing when there's a car coming for safety. That's a sensor in your car. I tell kids to breathe. Tap your chest. That's a sense in your body. You can smell food. These are sensors. Mr. Lamp has a sensor to follow the red ball. But it's baloney. There is no sensor in the lamp, you know? But that's the point. The point is I'm telling a story. And sometimes you have to lie in order to tell a greater truth. In order to tell a greater truth, you have to lie sometimes. Yeah.
Well, and like you get people to invest in the character.
Yeah, you get people to, and I'm talking about something deeper too. It's like, you know, think of all like how like all these great prophets speak. They're in parables. That means I don't know if it really happened, but there's a, you know, there's some greater truth there, you know, and that's what magicians are. That's what magic is. It's like, take a journey with me. But that's what you do too. When you do these amazing performances, even though you can see sometimes the pole that you're holding that is connected to this huge creature, you forget after like 30 seconds because what you're doing, it comes to life, you know? Yeah. So the idea is, what I do is there is no censors, you know, but that's okay because I'm educating my audience about technology. So they're seeing the technology here, but this is what's fun about the magician. I get to blur the lines wherever I want, you know, just to further the illusion. And magicians do hide the stuff all the time. You know, it's sometimes with magic, the method is more fascinating than the actual effect. You know, like my friend has a trick where he'll borrow a quarter, you know, it disappears and then it appears in like, I don't know, just some impossible location, you know, and then when you find out how it's done, it's like, oh my gosh, that's better than the trick, you know, that the journey that this quarter takes to get, you know, to this impossible location is fascinating. But yeah, you're definitely right, Eric. That's a good point because as a magician, you know, we blur the lines and I blur the lines with the aesthetics. With Mr. Lamp, he goes down to the table. I take the clown nose, it vanishes from my hand, and then when he lifts up, the ball appears. You know, so I take the principles of magic and do sneaky stuff in the cup to make that stuff happen. You know,
that's so cool.
Yeah.
What do you feel like overall? Is there like what is the place of technology in live performance? You know, how does it? You know, there's so much that is at our hands. There's so much so many techniques that we can use, so many technologies that are available to us. You know, what do you feel like is the role of technology in that live performance?
Yeah. Like for me, as much as I push this 3D printing and I push this, microcontroller stuff, the truth is everything that I try to accomplish, I use that technology last. Like I want to be able to make it without that stuff. If I absolutely need it, then I will do it, So, and I think because there's a beauty with the simplicity, last night on Penn and Teller Fool Us, there was a magician, Garrett Thomas, who performed, and he fooled Penn and Teller. And this guy is like iconic. He's like legendary magician. The stuff he's come up with over the years is insane, And then here he is on this big stage, right, Eric? Penn and Teller Fool Us, national TV. And he's like, has nothing in his hands, all he has is one ring on his finger, and he does he had one of them come up, and that ring traveled from each finger right in front of them. He had them hold their finger like this with the ring there, and it came right off. And then he handed the ring for examination, and he's like, there's nothing gimmicked on this ring. It's a real ring. And that stuff is so inspiring to me because you work so many years in your life trying all these technologies, all these different tools, hammers, 3D printing, wood carving, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, the reason you do that is so that one day you open this door and all you got is this ring and you can do all the magic in the world, right? But that's like you. That's like you with a toilet paper roll, That give you a clothes hanger and a toilet paper roll, and then give you 2 hours. I come back and there's like an elephant that's like, eating stuff, it's insane. It's like what you can do with ordinary objects. But I think that's why we're both kind of similar, we love that kind of principles, those kind of things,
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So what other, Stephen. Hi, Steve Witterman.
I just thought that was perfect timing. His comment. It's exactly.
Oh wow, magician!
Yeah, by directing the focus of the observer.
Ooh, that's well said. So well said.
It's true. I've talked about that quite a bit too. That in puppetry, there's a lot of just like basic acting and stage blocking techniques that you use to direct the attention of the audience. And when I'm visible as a puppeteer and you can see the puppet that I'm manipulating, I use just basic theater direction to kind of make encourage the audience to look at this thing and not this thing.
That's true.
Demonstrate that this thing is much more interesting than this thing. And I really feel like it's an active participation with the audience, that it's not so much like forcing them to look over here. It's like encouraging them to look over here, sort of guiding them through. They're sitting down and going to see what I'm up to next. Let's show them this thing and then this thing and then show them this thing and let them know that they're in good hands. Because that's what I want when I'm in the audience. It's like I love seeing, this is like what's so great about your act. Like your act is so energetic and is really, you have such great energy on stage. But there's never a moment when I feel like you don't know what's going on or what's going to happen. And you have this great manic quality, but it's not, but there's a comfort to it that you really still know that this is the moment you're supposed to look here. This is the moment you're supposed to look here. Like I'm seeing what you want me to see, which is really great as an audience member.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, for me, like over the years of doing this so many years, we always say with magic, like the audience creates the performer, so you just kind of ride, and I talk about this in my lecture too. It's like, what are your weaknesses as a performer, as a person, whether it's a puppeteer or magician, what are your weaknesses? And once you identify those, and then then you figure out what your strengths are, and so I take my weaknesses, what I'm weak at as a person and a performer, and I expose them, when I'm in front of an all, certain kind of audience, I get nervous. I get very nervous, So instead of me being sweating while I'm trying to hold a coin, in my classic poem, it's God, I'm never going to be that magician, So what am I going to do then? I'm going to take my weakness and make it a strength. So I'm going to be watch this coin disappear. I'm going to put it in my hand and it's gone. See, it disappeared, Eric. And then, it's disappeared. It's not there, and so I'm taking what makes me weak, this manic-y nerves of being nervous, and then I'm creating it into a strength, so, and like you said, it's the chaos is me. That's the punk rock screaming in a microphone for 10 years in a band, that's me having $10 in my pocket, making it to Colorado and not caring if I'm going to eat or not, that's who I am, so over the years, you take, and we all do this as performers, is like, once we figure out what our weaknesses is, we utilize it to our strength, and then, knowing with my strength, like for some reason kids connect more. So how do I capitalize on that and make my performance stronger and connect? And at the end of the day, it really is, it's just, how do we connect, whether it's a magic trick or with the puppet. Yeah.
Do you get pretty different reactions from adult audiences as from kid audiences? Like what you mentioned that performing for adults, but usually there are adults in kid audiences as well. Like it's usually like pretty mixed.
Oh, 100%. 100%. For me, I'm talking about when I was like 22, 23, I had this idea that I wanted to be David Blaine. I wanted to be Copperfield. I wanted to be this like majestic kind of like, I don't do kids magic, like I'm like going to have my theater show in Vegas. There's a stigma in my culture. There's a stigma in magic culture.
Same with puppetry for sure.
Okay. So, and that's my goal, is to break that, in every angle possible, because every great opportunity I've ever had in my life is from the humble children's party, like every opportunity, like every great moment I've had. And, I don't know. It's something that bothers me a lot as a performer, as a person. Like, there's no awards in magic for the family performer, for the children's performer. They elevate the stage performer, the parlor magician, the illusionist, and it gets me angry because, most of these magicians got into magic when they were a kid. Like, the reason why we all love magic is because of the child in us, We're ignoring where magic started, We're ignoring where it started, And also, like, I get very passionate about it too, because like when a parent, allows their child to get performed for, they're not shoving their child there just so they can go do something else, that their biggest asset in life is their children, So the idea of them doing that is a very sacred thing. And I think you realize that too. I mean, that's why, you're not doing this to get famous. You're doing this because you have a story to tell,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And also I like, someone's at the door. That's live television.
We're live.
I like connecting to people too. I find that, you probably know this too. Like there really is the stigma that goes along with performing for young audiences, I think, is that there is a lot of leeway and there isn't as high a standard to performing for younger audiences. They think, it's just performing for kids. Yeah. But in my experience, that is completely the opposite. And that, younger audiences are way more discerning and way more vocal about what they're discerning about. And that that we're very popular today, and
well, think about what you just said. Think about what you just said. You said, I don't like performing for kids. Think about that, okay? Just think about that statement. So, like, what if I, like, at a magic convention, magicians will be like, imagine if I said, I don't really like performing for Mexicans, because they don't get my magic, Yeah. Like, how messed up is that statement, Yeah. That's bad. That's not socially acceptable. But yet if I say, I don't like performing for kids, they're terrible. And you can say it all honest. Everyone's like, yeah, I understand. It's difficult, Yeah.
I feel like people equate children's performances for young audiences with bad performances. But all of the moments that really imprint on me are the ones that I saw when I was younger. And I think that, there's so much that is, and it's the good ones that imprint on me. There is really good entertainment for young audiences. And that's what we try and do at Puppet Kitchen, is we really, we we make performances that we enjoy, knowing that we share a lot with young people. We share a lot in common with young people. That's sort of how we get into it. It's sort of like, oh, it's a coincidence. It's sort of a good happenstance that we, we enjoy a lot of the same entertainment.
Yeah, you want to see great art, like, and the great art that you saw when you were a kid. Like, look what happened. Built this enterprise, where you're changing kids. Like, millions of kids are getting inspired by you and what you do.
Yeah.
No, it's true. And like, I just, I admire Mr. Rogers a lot, and I love, I love what he stood for, and I love, like, I feel like that there's such a need for that in our society and in our culture right now, that kind of thing, and but yeah, aside from all that, it's like you said, it's just, you got to see live entertainment as much as possible,
Now you have kids also, right?
Yeah, I have 2 kids. I have a 6-year-old Bear and a 9-year-old Gigi, and
Amazing.
they're little makers. You could follow them on Instagram.
Yeah.
Gigi, Maker Gigi on Instagram. She goes live every Saturday and Sunday. She makes little felt monsters that she sews, and she has the audience decide what colors she's going to use, how they're going to make them, and then she does it live on camera, and it's really awesome.
That's so cool.
And how did that happen? That's because we go to maker fairs all year. We're in these environments where there's makers, there's people in front of you, hundreds of tables where they're tinkering, building stuff. That's the goal, is like, the sooner we can get kids exposed to art, great art, the sooner they're going to find their calling too, because we're all artists, no matter what we make,
Yeah. Do you find that your performance, having kids, has changed your performance for young people?
It definitely makes me feel old, Eric. All right. I mean, if you want to learn like your mortality and how much time you have left, have kids. Because after they're a baby, and then 8 years go by, and they're like totally different. And then the only
whole person now.
No, but like, it's definitely changed my game. What's exciting is just, it's showing up to a theater with both my kids running around, causing chaos. And like, this is who we are. We're a family business. There's nothing more that I love than going to a local television network where we're doing a little spot and the kids are causing ruckus in the green room. It's like, listen, this is real life. If you don't like it, then don't have me here, because this is what I represent. Family. I represent that energy of kids. I represent that. This is what our business is. And this is why my aesthetics are so bold too, because it's that punk rock inside of me where I don't care, there's too many people that are lukewarm in the world. You're either going to be hot or cold. Choose something, If you have something to say, say it. Like Bob Dylan said, I know my song well before I start singing, and that's so important to me always, know your song.
I love that. Mario, this has been such a joy. I have loved having you on the show.
Eric, I'm such a big fan of everything you do, dude. It's so awesome watching your journey. Seriously.
Thank you.
Really awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It really means a lot coming from you, because I love what you do. I follow you like mad on Instagram. I didn't even talk about how I, followed your journey of like transforming your van into your house and taking your family on the road. That was incredible.
Yeah.
And just a really amazing story. It's been great to have you. For those watching at home, wait, there you are. You're in front of me.
There it is. Look at all those
for those watching at home, you also have an interview show called The Mario Show. Am I right?
Yep. We have The Mario Show. It'll be on Make Magazine's Facebook page this Friday, Halloween special. So awesome. If you check out Facebook, if you go on Facebook and hit up Make Magazine, you'll see it. Or if you go to Mario the Magician, themarioshow.tv or mariothemagician.com, Instagram, we post a lot. And this Friday, we're going to be live for The Mario Show. It's going to be great. So what we do is we interview kids. We have a segment called What If Kids Rule the World, where it's kind of like Art Linkletter, where we just ask philosophical questions, and then we just let them answer. And this has been how I've been stretching my character during this pandemic, is stripping away all the robots, all the magic. Can I still be who I am with just a piece of paper and questions when I talk to people? How can my character come out, and how can I get the same reactions,
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing more of what you're up to. I'm really excited that you're keeping busy and doing more stuff and get, being able to connect with more people, because I, I just think you're great. I think you do
Thanks,
really
man.
incredible work, and I'm
Thanks
really
a lot.
excited to see what you do next.
I hope we work together again someday, Eric. All right?
Yeah, man.
All
Let's
right,
do
cool.
it. Thank you so much for
Thanks
being
for
on the
having me
show. We'll
on.
talk to you soon.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, thank you everyone for joining me. Thank you again, Mario, for being on the show. It is so great to talk to you. It's been a while, and it's just such a joy. So for everyone out there, now we're on YouTube and Facebook Live and Twitch. You should like and subscribe and share this video. There's like buttons and subscribe buttons and comments, and send us around. Spread the love. Tune in next week. Puppet Time Online will come at you Wednesday at 2:00 Eastern time. That's the middle of the week, and it's just a perfect time. Thank you so much. I do have some my shout outs are all to Mario. Go check him out, mariothemagician.com, or themarioshow.tv. He's also on YouTube here, you just mentioned, and I Make Magazine. I will shout out to the Connolly Theater every chance I get, because that's, pretty much what brought us together. Sesame Street that brought us together at the Connolly. So it's been great. Thank you so much again, Mario. And to all of you out there, just remember, you don't have to do everything to do something. We'll see you next time.